Inner Voice, a heartfelt chat with Dr. Foojan.
Introducing a powerful new update from the Foojan app. Now with flexible subscription plans to fit your journey monthly, quarterly, or yearly. Our new AI-driven onboarding customizes your path to feeling better, faster, and enjoy a refreshed experience with stunning 3D interactive videos. Update now. Empower your inner voice with Foojan. Download today. Welcome to the Inner Voice, a Heartfelt Child podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Foojan Zeine. I'm a psychotherapist and author and the creator of the Awareness Integration Theory. So thrilled to have you join me today. I promise you it's a very heartfelt conversation and a discussion. Today I speak with Katty Douraghy. She's an entrepreneur, she's an author, podcast host, and facilitator dedicated to fostering open conversations about loss, resilience, and hope. Now, through her work, Katty seeks to demystify grief and create a supportive space where individuals can process their loss without judgment or pressure to move on too quickly. As the author of The Butterfly Years, Katty shares her personal journey through grief and toward hope. Her follow-up project, The Butterfly Years Journal, is a 12-week guided journal designed to help others navigate through their own journey through grief using reflective prompts and explorations. In addition to her writing and speaking engagement, she's the president of the Artesian Creative, a recruitment and talent development agency with a focus on creative and marketing roles. She's also an experienced team facilitator working closely with leadership team to enhance collaboration, communication, and personal growth. So Katty believes we all have a story to tell and that our greatest journey is through actually self-discovery. We had a really deep conversation about her personal journey, mine, through losing our parents and, you know, what that entails, all the emotions that show up for all of us. That are very normal, but still we've got to go through it and how to enjoy, change the grief into a joy of remembrance of who we have lost. So I really enjoyed our conversation, and I'm sure you will too. Now be sure to subscribe to my podcast on my YouTube channel. Connect with me through my website, foojanzeine.com, and from there you can really go through all of the social medias and check it out. Go get Foojan app. Foojan app is a place where you could do guided journaling through 31 areas of your life, all the important areas of your life, and really create improvement up to 70%. That's what I got from people who are using it already. And go to Mira, which is a AI-generated chatbot, which is trained specifically in the awareness integration theory. So I'm positive that you'll get a lot. You could ask questions any time of day. I mean, isn't that amazing that you have kind of like personal coach in your pocket anytime that you need, any time of the day. So I really want you to experience it. So go get Foojan app. And then within the app, you can find Mira, which is the chatbot. So I'd love to hear from you. Connect with me. Now, without further ado, here's Katty Douraghy.
Listen up if you want to promote your personal growth and self-awareness. I found the Foojan app last month and I have been absolutely loving it. I personally have never learned guided meditation, but thanks to this app, I now have learned incredible tools for my own stress relief and emotional self-awareness. Not to mention, there are self-evaluation tools and professional coaching available to utilize however your journey to self-discovery takes you. Join Foojan today and redefine your life one step at a time.
Intentional Parenting, a practical guide to awareness integration theory, written by Dr. Jafari, Dr. Foojan Zeine, and Dr. Manoukian, 3 experts in human development, is your step-by-step guide to raising a healthy child prepared for a culturally integrated world. You're supported in parenting infants to adolescents using the latest evidence-based scientific research on parenting. Order your copy on Amazon now. It is such a great pleasure to have you with us, everyone. Katty Douraghy.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here with you and with your audience today. Thank you for having me.
Of course. We met a couple of weeks ago, actually, in a conference that we were presenting at the Iranian American Women's Foundation. And you have written a beautiful book. The name is The Butterfly Years. And there's a reason why you decided to do this. And you've been going through a lot of loss, and writing and sharing about your process of grief and loss is really helpful to for people, because we all go through loss. There's one way or another, whether the loss is losing a parent, or aging ourselves, or living with someone who is aging, or just, even losses from one phase of life to another. So everybody handles loss in a different way. And I wanted you to be able to share your story, and how has this loss changed your life?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're absolutely right. No two instances of loss are the same. Even for me, I had multiple losses. None of those were the same either. Like every single instance is different. Not like a snowflake. Everything has its own unique shape and unique experience that one goes through. So I wrote the book about 4 years ago, and it took me a number of years to get to that space to write it. I really felt that I had learned things, and I wanted to share that with people about just what my journey had been. If it gave anyone just an inkling of hope, of relief, of camaraderie, that's really what I wanted to do. But I tell you, it took a while to write a book, and it's a small book. It's not a very big book, but I think I was so concerned with how I was presenting the story of the people who I had lost. I wanted to make sure I honored. I wanted to make sure that I remembered correctly. So it was an internal challenge. I think even writing it as beautiful of an experience it was for me, as healing of an experience it was for me, at the same time, it was also conflicting. But what eventually happened and how I came out of it, I would say, how I've changed, is kind of just recognition that part of the healing process is to help other people. That's kind of just recognizing that I'm not in this by myself. I'm not alone. And the more I can share the story with somebody else, and if that helps them, it actually helps me in that whole process. So that's how it's changed. I felt that my loss was very singular. I felt that I was all alone, even though I wasn't. I have loved ones, I have a spouse, I have siblings, but I just felt so alone going through it, that writing it and sharing it just really has expanded my world from that perspective.
I've lost my father when I was around in my 20s, and then my mom when I was around in my 50s. And it was very different. I mean, both of them were not living with me. They were living, in Iran, and I hadn't lived with them for a long time. And it's interesting that, one angle of it is connecting and completion with our relationship with that person, say whatever it is that we wanted to say. And it was interesting because with my father, I had not had the opportunity. So after he passed away, I just fell in this huge rage, as if like I hadn't given myself the right, or, to be upset with him. And then finally it was safe even to be upset with him before I could go to the grief.
Yes.
With my mother was different because I kept going back and seeing her, and she had dementia. So she, I saw her more like, at the end becoming this like little a little girl or an angel that was there without any of the other pieces. And just seeing her in that way, a lot of the forgiveness came right at that time before she passed away. So there was this ability to complete with her before she passed away. And then, and then the loss came. It was very interesting for me that how this concept of having the ability to complete with someone allows our grief to kind of go through us as, we no longer have them, versus when you don't have that opportunity, the cycles are so different after we lose them. Can you share a little bit about your experience and how all of this has been for you?
Yes. So my stepmother passed in January of 2011. My father passed in February of 2011, and my mother passed away in April of 2011. So that 4-month period was I would say, a pretty deep emotional roller coaster. The interesting thing and the challenging thing at the same time is that my father had a Parkinson's disease. For a number of years, I actually couldn't speak to him. He was also in Iran. So all of my communication had been with my stepmother through that conversation. Like she was my connection to my dad. She would relay my messages to him, his messages to me. His voice had been impacted, so he really couldn't be on the phone and speak. So it had been a number of months since I had heard from her. But at that same time, I was with my mom, who had lung cancer, and she'd been going through that for a number of years. And I knew her time was very short. I knew that her cancer had spread. All my energy, all my thoughts, all my time was with her. So when I found out that my stepmother had passed away, and subsequently my father had passed away, like the amount of guilt that came to that, like it was an unfinished conversation for sure. But also I didn't even know. Like that's like I kept saying to myself, like, how did I not know? Right? Like that. And I think we put so much judgment on ourselves. Of course, I didn't know, right? Like, first of all, I was so caught up with whatever was happening with my mom. But like, I think that's the context with which we examine things and we look at ourselves and we pass judgments on ourselves. So that's that story. That definitely was an unfinished story. But I think in some ways, because of the distance, because I was here in the US, my dad was in Iran, and I hadn't spoken to him in some time, I think I came to terms with that a little bit easier once I got over the guilt. With my mom, she had been intubated the last week of her life. And as her person, as her trustee, as a person who was responsible for her advance directive, it had been my responsibility to finally make that decision for her after some time had passed, to take her off of life support. But because she had been intubated, she couldn't really speak. And the last couple of days, she kind of just fell into a coma. So I felt like, you know what, there was so much I wanted to say to her, so much I wanted her to say to me. Like, what if she had changed her mind? Like, right? Well, what if she didn't want to be on? Like, but we never had that conversation. So with her, it was a different journey in that I was physically present with her, but I still couldn't speak to her. But I have to also say something that I hadn't noticed or recognized at the time. But boy, what a gift it is. And, you know, this always makes me emotional, but what a gift it is to be the witness as someone takes their last breath. What a gift it is to be there with them so that they're not alone, and recognize how much trust they had in you to make that decision for them. Boy, like I've sat with that for a number of years. and like at the time, I didn't even know there was such a thing as a death doula, that there's people who do this. And I was like, oh, that's such a gift that I was able to be present with her and be present for her, and make a decision for her because she couldn't do it anymore. So that took a while to get to that point, but
you shared something, and through your conversation, this came up for me, that one of the strongest emotion that also shows up for many, many people, regardless of how much they've given service to their family or to think that they've never done anything wrong, is the emotion of guilt.
mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's a survival guilt of how come, I'm still here and you're not. Sometimes it's the, I should have done this and I should have done that, and how come I didn't do this, and something you shared about your father. But guilt is one of those emotions that shows up repeatedly. I don't know, 32 years of working with people with grief, there are not that many people that come out of this without even an ounce of guilt, and not because they have the right to be guilty. No. It's just one of those common emotions that comes up.
Mm-hmm.
How have you handled this process as you've gone through this?
So initially it was more of a, did I do enough? Did I say enough? Did I wait long enough? Did I wait too long? She was very clear about not wanting to be on any kind of life support, and I waited a week. Like, was that too long? Was that long enough? I said, so that guilt was caught up in that initially. The second part of it was, I think there's a judgment around that particular disease, especially if the patient was a smoker. So I think and I don't think I did enough to defend her. So I had that guilt. But over time, I think I've recognized that a lot of guilt comes with regrets. Like if there's no regret, sometimes there's no guilt around it. But so I had a lot of regret. That's where the guilt came from. But I also recognize that I had regrets because these were important components to me, to my values, to my beliefs, to being there for someone, for the sense of responsibility I have. And I just didn't feel that maybe at the time I had stepped into that responsibility as strongly as I could have. I know time is a beautiful healer, a beautiful friend. So in time, I've worked through that. I think journaling helped a lot. Meditation helped a lot. Being with nature helped a lot. But at the time, it just didn't feel like it. So anyone who's thinking about it, feeling it, just be kind to yourself. I think is the thing that I learned the hard way.
Yes. And I've also sensed guilt as a part of that kind of bargaining for us, so that possibly things could be different than it is. So we keep going and saying, maybe if I should have done that, like you said,
Yes.
if, and the if is, it's almost like not wanting to accept what's going on and coming up with all these other alternatives, that if any of those were there, the alternatives will be there. And I think partly what time does is you can do as much as bargaining you want, but ultimately you got to accept the fact that it is what it is. And I think we shift out of that.
Mm-hmm.
But I also see the time of grief, or time with anything, as if, like, you could hold an empty bottle with no top, and all time does to it is more dirt in it. Or you could have an amazing wine and, kept in an appropriate place, and, time will just give it more body and more flavor. So it really matters also what we do in time. So I like what you said, if I can recognize that part of this guilt is part of the bargaining, or recognize that there are things that I said, I have remorse that I should have done that I didn't, or that I did that I shouldn't have done, either or, way. And how to forgive myself, for whatever I did, because at that time, maybe I didn't know better. Maybe that's all the alternative that I, could have at the moment. So, having that compassion for ourselves through this time really helps, because if you're just badgering yourself, now you have the grief, you have the loss, you have the sadness of that, and then you're also putting a lot of anger on yourself, which is possibly just useless at that moment. Like if I could learn something out of these bargaining and say, okay, I will take this learning and now support myself in my relationships that I have today. So if I felt like I didn't say enough I love yous, if I didn't take care of some things, that okay, now I can learn that. And possibly if I have a mate, or I have children, I have friends and family around me, and how can I bring that into my life for the future? And then after that, to kind of like allow yourself to forgive yourself and move ahead.
Yeah, very, very true. There's big lessons in that, big lessons in loss. So if we don't remember those lessons, I think we're apt to repeat some of those mistakes. So like really taking that to heart, it's so important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You also have shared about a way of remembrance of someone, which can allow that remembrance to be pleasurable. Sometimes obviously at the beginning, every time we have a remembrance, a memory of something, of a episode that we were with a loved one, sadness shows up, remorse, anger, shame, any of those emotions come up. And then it's like, how can we, in time, whenever the time is there, to be able to have that transform to a place of beauty where we hold the best of them in our heart and we give the best of them to them. So what do you think on that? How have you transformed this for yourself?
Well, I think it's, for me anyway, it's been paramount to have those opportunities for remembrance, and also opportunities to finish some of those conversations and continue some of those conversations that I didn't feel like I had time to complete. So two key things are part of my, I would say, rituals. One of them I came about because I saw this quote. Funnily enough, I went to the museum to see the King Tut exhibit in LA some years ago, and there was this beautiful quote, go in gold, like in gold leaf on this big, beautiful black wall. And it said that it was a quote from the Egyptian Book of the Dead. And it said that people die twice, once when they're physically dead, and the second time when people stop saying their name. So that just really hit me. And that was actually an impetus for wanting to write the book, because I don't have children. So as I kept thinking about legacy and who's going to say my mom's name, who's going to say my dad's name, the book was one way of making sure that it was out there. Whomever read that book would say their name out loud and would conjure them up for a moment, right? So that was the impetus, the first thing. So I've made it a point that anytime I talk about my mom, I say her name. Her name is Mahshid, which in Farsi translates to the moon's rays, which led to a second remembrance and ritual that I have. So every time I see the moon, thankfully I see it quite a few nights, I look up the moon, I say hi to her. When it's a full moon, I actually have a conversation with her about whatever's going on with me at the time, or if I'm stuck and I need her counsel, just to talk to her. So I have many of these little rituals throughout. I celebrate is, I think, the thing that I've walked away with in all these years. I even have a word that I use. I call it an anniversary. So whether it's their birthday or it's their anniversary or the anniversary of their passing, I call it an anniversary. I like to honor, I like to remember, I like to talk about and then celebrate. Because they were amazing people. I want to celebrate them.
And also celebrating them within us, right? So because there's so many of our characters, there's so many things. Like I look at myself in the mirror sometimes, and I have this way of looking that is just like, that's my mom.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, Foojan is here. He just showed up, like in my things the way that I did that. Or there's sentences that I say, and I'm like, that's it. She's just, she just shared that with me because those are the sentences and the tone of voice that, she had. Or, with my dad, there are particular memories or particular things that show up every day in my life. And I'm like, there he goes. There he is. So it's also that, remembrance of how they're always somehow here within us, in our behaviors, in the way that we've integrated them into our life and into our personality, right? So the honoring them can continue from that realm and moving forward.
Yeah, always, always. And you're right. I look at myself sometimes in the mirror, and I'm like, oh, hello. I didn't realize that. I've always been told that I look like her. I look like my mom. But as I'm getting older, I'm like becoming her carbon copy, which in some ways is like so joyful to do that. And in some ways, I'm like, I never thought I looked so much like her, but gosh, I do. And my mannerisms and the way I move my hands and like all of that.
Yeah.
And a mini math sheet.
So everyone, get this book, The Butterfly Years, A Journey Through Grief Toward Hope. Katty, there's also the symbolization that you talked about that, even the concept of butterfly is a symbolization, but there's also the symbolization of, you shared, like, I associate now my mom with the moon. So there's also association of, some people put the person's pictures all around, or they hold something, that they had, a piece of clothing or jewelry or something that they had, which is, we put that association to whatever item it is so that we could keep them with us. So a lot of the moving from the grief to the hope is shifting from a loss to actually looking at the gain, like how much they can be in our life every day. It was interesting because when my mom was alive, I wasn't thinking of her every day, or, even the times where I had to call, I was like, oh my God, I have to call her. It was almost like, she was an afterthought. But it was interesting that after her passing away, she keeps coming, her thought keeps coming to me. The remembrance are constantly there because now I have associated her into so many of the daily activities. Mm-hmm. So it's part of the concept of the grief moving into hope is how we choose to continue holding them in our memory and having them be a part of us.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. We don't have a choice, right? Like, we are continuing to live. I've taken it upon myself to live not for me only, but for those who cannot live for themselves anymore. So like that's a commitment. That's a responsibility. That's what has given me hope, to just know that, what, the sun comes up the next day. Even though at the time I thought my world was over, I was actually really surprised and angry that the sun came out. I was like, why is the sun rising? Like, it's so dark inside. But that nature was, I think, a big teacher in terms of there is a cycle of life. Everything is cyclical. Everything has a rebirth and a regrowth and a death, and a rebirth and a regrowth and a death. So like that's what hope is. It kind of germinated and came alive.
Another factor that I've really noticed is when we lose someone in death, and definitely if we're losing our parents, we also inevitably think about our own death because we're facing death. So part of, for example, what you said was, now I look at, because I don't have children, when I die, then what's going to happen to my memory of being carried? Because you're carrying your parents' memory within you as you're alive. But if I die and if I don't have the offsprings to do that for me, then what's going to happen? So there's a place that we actually face death. How was that for you? How was that process? How did that change your view of death itself and life?
Mhm. I think my biggest fear growing up was that I would lose my parents. Like that to me was a thing that scared me the most. Ever since I was a little kid, like that's the thing that just scared that frightened me. But it happened, and it happened within 4 months of each other, and it happened when I was in my mid 40s. Even then, I felt like I had just like turned into a little kid. But as time passed, um, I recognized that, you know what, I think it hasn't changed. Like not only has my relationship with death changed, I think it was a beautiful thing watching her cross to the other side. I think witnessing that was something that I had never experienced before, and it just calmed me in a very strange way. But I think the bigger lesson that I've learned from it is about aging. I think I didn't want to age before, and then have come to realizing that, you know what, aging is actually a pretty good thing. Like the the alternative isn't something I'm ready for right now. But if it were to come, I'm at peace with death. I think the piece that I really want to make sure that I'm living every moment, not like I was saying, not just for me, but for others, has made me be incredibly present, incredibly grateful. I'd say my gratitude is 3, 4, 5, 6 times a day to like little things. We had a storm yesterday and it was beautiful, and I was grateful to see a storm. So it's just changed my attitude to how I live every single day today, because I don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. But I'm just grateful for it. Grateful for every single moment. Grateful for to be here with you. And like this gratitude all around.
Yes, I think that it brings a level of deeper acceptance for life as is when we actually face the death. So it's like, all right, well, that's always available. Definitely one day is available, but at any moment it can be available. So then it's like, how can I enjoy the moment? So how can life become richer? How can I be present, like you said, in every moment of life and take it in, so that when the time comes, because it's not if the time comes, it's when the time comes, that I feel that I've lived a rich life.
Yeah. And I think that's hope, right? Like that's hope. Hope is knowing you'll stumble, knowing you'll fall, knowing you'll bruise your knees, but you get up, you dust off, and you continue going. And maybe you'll stumble again, and that's okay. You'll just get up. It's having the fortitude to get up and just look around and say, okay, I'm okay. I'll continue going. That has been what has sprung hope for me. So you're absolutely right.
There's also this experience that I had, and I'm just sharing it and see what your take on it is. Losing parents are very different than losing others. Mm-hmm. My experience was that until I had parents, there was a part of me that remained a child, which wanted to be taken care of. And then if for any reason couldn't be taken care of, I would still hold that expectation. And part of that expectation partially could even bring resentment. How come I'm not being taken care of, right? Because regardless of my age, or even needing to be taken care of or not, the role of a parent and a child remains as the child expects the parent to always be there. And I think when both my parents passed away, suddenly there was like this forced adulthood, forced individuation, and again, I mean, I did not live with them even from the age of 12. So there was always this kind of like, how come I don't have them? And then when they weren't there, suddenly this kind of like, okay, you can't even have that expectation anymore. So let it go. And you got to only rely on you. And although in action I had relied on me and gained a lot of strength, but even that illusion of it inside went away. And I kind of like internally, I became an adult. I mean, obviously, age-wise I was, but internally something changed, which is no more excuses.
Mm-hmm.
You're the only one who you can rely on any angle. And there was such a growth in that process.
Mm-hmm.
How was your experience?
Oh, I agree with you so much. Thank you for saying it. I felt when both my parents were gone, I think there's a term, adult orphan. I felt there was no one but me. And of course, I have loved ones and other family members. But you're absolutely right. When my parents were gone, they were the two that no matter what I did, they were always there. I always felt like there was this support behind me no matter what. Even though my father was in Iran, as I mentioned, and my mom had been dealing with her own things for a number of years. The moment they were gone, it was the moment that I came out of that cocoon. Like, even though that whole pain was in that chrysalis, I should say. So part of the butterfly metaphor is the transformation from grief to hope. Part of that butterfly metaphor is coming out of the darkness of the chrysalis. But part of it is just spreading my wings and just finally growing up. So at the age of 45, I think is when I finally became an adult. 100%. 100%.
Kathy, there's also... Go ahead. You were going to say...
No, I was saying thank you for saying that.
There's also this factor that we see a lot more with people having having their family or their parents go through dementia and Alzheimer's. And I think that's a very different feel than when you have a parent who's aging, but they have their character, their personality, they're still relating to you, although they might also be in pain or have different type of, illnesses that they're living through. But as I keep seeing people who are with parents who are elders, but they either live with them or not live with them, but they can relate to them, so different than people who are going through this transition with their parents who have been diagnosed with dementia, Parkinson's in the late, Parkinson's as it goes through late stages, which there also has this connection, and Alzheimer's. Because the connection is no longer there, there's such sadness, grief, and rage that happens.
Mm-hmm.
When they have to become the caretakers. The children turn around to be caretakers, but they're also becoming caretakers of a person who no longer have their faculty. They're no longer present. And I'm witnessing consistently with friends and family in that, friends and some of my clients, which this is what's going on with them. And the rage becomes part of this whole process. And they feel so guilty. So like throughout the day, they have multiple contradictory emotions that are being experienced intensely in relation to their parents. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, the experience I can share is the experience that I had, that the final year of my mom's life, her lung cancer had spread to her brain. And the treatments that she had, obviously the radiation and so forth on her brain, her personality altered. So it wasn't that it wasn't similar to a dementia in that she still had all her faculties. She just was not the same person. And it was a very strange thing to to watch, because she looked the same, she sounded the same, she just wasn't the same. And perhaps part of it was just her own journey and her own fears of whatever she was going through, but she just wasn't the same. She literally was not the same person. And I think for me, part of the guilt that we started our conversation with came from the anger that I had had that last year of her life. And I think what I walked away from, two things. One is I got so caught up in the role of the caretaker that I forgot to be a daughter. And I wish I had recognized that sooner. We finally got a caretaker to take care of her. And then I could step and just be me with her. But that wasn't the journey for a while. So that was the number one lesson, that if it helps anyone, to just remember the relationship. None of us, unless if we've been trained to be a caretaker, unless if we have the nursing credentials, or it's difficult to impart that onto someone. So can we just be the daughter, the sister, the spouse, when we can be that? So that's one part of the relationship. The second thing was that I was treating her as if she was the previous person. And that wasn't fair to her either. Like, I needed to learn, and I learned it too late, how to create a safe space for her to be who she was, and to be with her in this new version of her. But I didn't learn that till later. And that's part of kind of just the grace and the forgiveness that I need to bestow on myself, because I didn't have the training, right? I wish I had known you at the time to come and be with you, but I didn't.
I sit with my clients through this almost every day, and it's a process for every one of us, that to go from letting go of your being the child of the person, to the nurse of the person, caretaker of the person, and then realizing the rage, but then even the guilt that I can't. A lot of people say, I can't do this, and they go through this guilt of how come I can't do it, which is, it's okay, you're not trained to do this. Of course you can't do it. So there's such a process of this transition that happens, and it's not a one day concept. It's truly excruciating emotional process. And I think that part of our conversation is for people to hear that it's okay that they're feeling that way. It's natural that they're feeling that way. But how to prolong feeling this negativity, or having the realization that it's okay. I can let go of a role that I'm not prepared or trained for, and I can go back to the role that I've always had, that it was great, which I was the daughter. Mm-hmm. So that role I can play well, and can I give up the role to someone who's an expert in this, and they don't have emotional investment in this. And sometimes even the parents, as I've noticed, they listen to a stranger who's a caretaker much more than they would listen to their own children who are trying to take care of them, because sometimes it's also difficult for them to change the role. It's not just difficult for the children to change the role. It's also difficult for parents to change the role of, their strength and who they were. And they were always, a backup for their children. And then suddenly to be in this vulnerable, needy place, it's them also accepting that they're deteriorating, and it's hard for them. They're fighting that deterioration, and sometimes these two fights kind of like get involved, where if we give it away to a professional, this handles much smoother for people who have the ability, because for that you even have to have the financial ability to have the to be able to do that.
There's no entanglement, when there's a third party involved. Otherwise, you're absolutely right. I hadn't even thought about that. that the parent is probably looking at that same relationship in a different way. It's probably difficult for them to have a child be stepping into that role. So yeah.
As we're coming to a close, is there anything we haven't shared that you really want people to know?
No, I think we talked about most things, but I would just love to leave people with, if they haven't figured out some sort of a way to honor and to celebrate, to look for something that will give them joy, because that's the way to move toward hope. So however way it is to want to celebrate your loved ones, seek it. Sometimes it comes to you. Just sit with it for a moment, and maybe it'll just come to you. The butterfly came to me. It came and sat on my head. One day.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you also have the edition, which is a companion. There's a journal companion that you've also created with this book. So,
yes. So that was my goal initially, was to create a journal, but the book kept wanting to come out first. So I wrote the book and then I created the journal, because the rituals that are in the journal, the prompts that are in the journal, are actually really what helped me have some self-care for myself, have community, seek nature, seek some journaling, meditation, whatever that means for someone to have self-care for themselves. So I do have the two pieces. I'd love to create a discount for your audience, and I'll send that to you afterwards so you could share it. But anything to help people in this journey is really what I strive for, and that's what my goal is.
Beautiful. And where can people find you?
The website is called butterflyyears.com. Both the book and the journal are on there, but also how to contact me is on there. If anybody just needs a lending ear, I'm happy to do that and happy to be that person. But I think that your audience is also so fortunate to have you and your professional experience and your personal experience in this manner. That's one thing that I regret not having done earlier, is to seek professional support. I didn't even know that was there. So the fact that that's your expertise, if somebody can't do it for themselves, really seek that out. It's probably my last parting words to everybody is seek support, seek help.
Thank you. Yeah, therapy really, really helps. It's a great support at this time, because not only normalizes some of the processes that we go, but it also allows you to move on and really look at the next step, and the next step for you, and move from these steps in a smoother way to find yourself through all of the ordeals that are happening, and accepting what is, because part of the loss and grief is this non-acceptance of, I don't want to. And although we might not say it in such a childish way that I'm saying it, but a part of us inside is constantly saying, I don't want to. We just show it with a little bit of a sophisticated, what if this, what if that? Is the same thing. I don't want to accept what's happening. Yeah. So therapy certainly works in, facilitating this process of acceptance of ourselves and the circumstances of all that is. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us.
Thank you very much. And thank you to all your audience listening. Appreciate it.
And for all of you who are out there, create an amazing life for yourself and everyone around you. And until next week, bye-bye.
Break free from the forces holding you back. Get the life you deserve. Eliminate stress, reduce anxiety, decrease depression, and start living your full potential. Thousands have used Dr. Foojan Zeine's awareness integration theory, an evidence-based behavioral health breakthrough with incredible life-changing results. Getting rid of past trauma, having fulfilling relationships, increasing earnings, and living their best life. Now, the Foojan app is available to everyone. The app is Dr. Foojan Zeine's awareness integration theory in the palm of your hand. Download the Foojan app today.
Are you a psychotherapist looking to enhance your practice? The Awareness Integration Therapy, developed by Dr. Foojan Zeine, is a comprehensive guide to the principle and techniques of this powerful therapeutic approach. Join the growing community who have elevated their practice and expanded their skills by embracing awareness integration therapy and witnessing its life-changing impact. Order your copy on Amazon now.